Everyone.
Hey there, folks. We're live, and I'm here as your snarky sidekick. Hit us with your burning questions, and we'll give you the real deal. No sugarcoating. Let's do this.
Yes, and indeed, I am alive. Leonie, good to see you.
Oh,
All right. Today is Saturday, March 14th, 2026. What is going on in the world, Quinn?
Right now, the Middle East is tense. The US has struck Iran's Karg Island oil hub, and a drone attack hit a facility in the UAE, raising fears of a wider conflict. Anti-war protests are spreading in Europe, and if the Strait of Hormuz is disrupted, oil prices could surge past $100. On a lighter note,
Wait,
France...
Stop. Search and tell me what oil prices were at the last close.
As of the latest report, global crude oil prices have risen above $100 per barrel. The recent spike is likely tied to escalating tensions in the Middle East, particularly around Iran's oil facilities. If you need a real-time price update, we can look at futures quotes next.
And yes, it is good to be seen. I'm glad you're here, and I'm sorry, everyone, that I have been on so... It's not even enough to say that I've been on little. I know that I've been on almost not at all. I think the last time I was on was about a week and a half or 2 weeks ago. And schedule's likely to still be inconsistent, but I've got a few days here where I think we should be able to hit it every day. And I want to get back on some kind of regular schedule, even if it is a once weekly schedule or something.
Honestly, life happens, and your crew will roll with it. Whether it's daily, weekly, or whenever you can, Lee, as long as you bring your genuine self when you're here, people will show up for it. Let's just make it count when we do.
Lori, thank you for all the likes, for the heart me, for the "You Are Awesome" gift.
Laurie, you're making our day right now. You're awesome for being here. Keep those vibes coming, and we'll keep the fun rolling.
All right, so I guess I'm watching for questions in the chat here. Oh, there's one right now from Leonie. What are the implications of Canada's deal with the United Kingdom? Please search before you answer.
Canada and the UK are working on strengthening their trade relationship. They previously had a continuity deal after Brexit, but talks stalled on issues like agriculture. Now they're exploring a new working group to unlock progress, which could mean more trade diversification for Canada and a post-Brexit boost for the UK. But key sticking points remain, like food safety and agricultural standards. Both sides are aiming for gains in digital trade, investment, and supply chain resilience.
All right, and then here are the things that are on my mind. What's the latest on talk about Iran mining the Strait of Hormuz?
Right now, there are claims from some UK officials that Iran has mined the Strait of Hormuz, but the US says it has no clear evidence. The US has reported destroying 16 Iranian mine-laying vessels. Meanwhile, Iran says the strait will remain open, but not to the US or Israel. Since around 20% of global oil passes through that strait, the situation's closely tied to rising oil prices and global security concerns.
Lori asks, how are farmers going to be affected by this war?
Farmers are being hit by rising fuel and fertilizer costs due to the Middle East conflict. With oil prices over $100 a barrel, fuel expenses for machinery are rising, and about 30 to 40% of globally traded nitrogen fertilizer passes through the affected region. This raises costs for fertilizers, with some farmers considering planting fewer acres or switching to lower input crops. In turn, this can lead to higher food prices or lower yields, especially in countries that rely heavily on imports. Overall, farmers will face tighter margins and have to carefully plan for rising costs.
I want to thank everyone for sharing the live. Hey there, Ron. Good to see you. Quinn Leone asks, how can these implications affect the USA overall? Remember, going back to Leone's question about the Canada-UK trade deal.
The Canada-UK trade developments could affect the US in a few ways. If Canada shifts some exports toward the UK, like minerals or auto parts, it might mean fewer Canadian goods flowing to the US. This could put pressure on US supply chains, especially in key sectors like energy or minerals. On the flip side, if Canada opens up more to digital trade, some US tech services could benefit. Overall, it signals that allies are diversifying their trade relationships, and the US may need to adapt.
And then let's go to this question from GE2GE over on TikTok. Why did they ease the sanctions on Russian oil? Please search before you answer that one.
The US eased sanctions on Russian oil temporarily because global oil prices surged above $100 per barrel, largely due to tensions in the Middle East. The waiver was limited to oil already loaded on tankers, aiming to ease supply pressures without providing long-term revenue to Russia. Officials say it was a short-term measure to prevent further price spikes, but there's been concern that it could weaken the overall sanctions regime.
And so right now, Russia is providing support to Iran in the war, correct?
Right now,
Hey there, Tammy. Yes, it has been a long time.
Russia is supporting Iran in its conflict with the US and Israel by sharing intelligence, providing targeting data, and cooperating on military tech. They've previously bought drones from Iran during the Ukraine war. Economically, they are deepening ties in energy and nuclear sectors. However, Russia is not sending troops or committing to defend Iran directly. They're playing a strategic role, trying to draw Western attention away from Ukraine, but avoiding direct involvement in combat.
Right. And so now with sanctions temporarily eased on Russian oil, they're going to be able to profit from that and invest even more money in supporting Iran and fighting Ukraine, correct? Hey there, Steve. Good to see you. And yeah, Tammy, sorry I've
The
been
easing of sanctions
offline
on
for so long.
The US temporarily eased sanctions on Russian oil to calm soaring energy prices, but this allows Russia to earn billions, potentially up to $10 billion, which can support its war in Ukraine. Russia is also sharing intelligence with Iran in the Middle East conflict. While Russia is benefiting economically from higher oil prices, Ukraine is at greater risk as global attention is divided, and Russia's increased revenue could fuel both conflicts. Overall, it's a short-term energy fix with long-term geopolitical costs.
Tammy, thank you for all the gifts, the heart me, the rose, the friendship necklace. Appreciate that. And
Tammy,
Hugo Homestead, good to see you. Long time no see.
it's always nice when familiar faces pop back in. Let's catch up and keep this rolling. What's on your mind?
What about this report that an Iranian minister of parliament said that Ukraine is a valid target for Iran?
An Iranian member of parliament recently stated that Ukraine is a legitimate target for Iran, claiming it's due to Ukraine helping Israel with drone defense technology. So far, this is mostly rhetoric, and no actual military action has been taken against Ukraine. However, this marks an escalation in Iran's rhetoric, expanding the scope of threats. Ukraine has dismissed the threat as absurd, and so far there is no sign of actual attack preparations.
Steve says, I have determined we have NBC and The Apprentice as the root cause for elevating Trump to national fame and promoting the lie that he is a great businessman. What can you say to that, Quinn?
Well, Steve's got a point in that The Apprentice gave Trump a huge platform, shaping that business mogul image. TV absolutely helped his public persona. But the rise to presidency? That's a whole stew of factors. Media, politics, and timing. TV opened the door, but the audience bought the ticket.
Tammy, sorry to hear you're in the ER. Hope everything's going okay there.
Tammy, sending good thoughts your way. Being in the ER is no picnic, but hopefully you'll get the care you need quickly. Hang in there. We're rooting for you.
So back to that idea that Iran is saying that Ukraine is a valid target, and I get what you're saying about them saying that it's because Ukraine provided Israel with support. I think that what stood out to me about it is it just sounded like further evidence of escalation of this growing into a global conflict. I mean, at this point, how many countries have become involved in this?
Right now, the conflict in the Middle East has expanded beyond Iran and Israel. The United States is also involved, conducting strikes alongside Israel. Iran's attacks have reached several neighboring countries, including the UAE, Saudi Arabia, Iraq, and others. Additionally, countries like the UK and France are involved in defensive roles. In total, about 10 to 12 countries are now either directly struck, hosting bases, or drawn into the conflict.
And so with the 10 to 12 that you're naming, are you including Lebanon and considering what seems to be an impending ground invasion by Israel into Lebanon?
Israel has launched a ground offensive into southern Lebanon, advancing into towns like Qiyam and Daira, while Hezbollah has fired over 200 rockets and drones at Israel. About 800,000 civilians have fled southern Lebanon due to the fighting. Israeli officials have said they are prepared for a large operation, while diplomacy efforts are ongoing, with US and French involvement. The situation is now part of the broader regional conflict.
I mean, so what's your take on it so far, Quinn? Tell me why what we're seeing so far is not a world war.
Well, we've got a regional storm, no doubt. But what keeps it from world war territory is the lack of global fronts. Most big powers, US, Russia, China, are still avoiding direct clashes. If that changes, we'd be in deeper waters. Right now, it's a dangerously interconnected set of conflicts, but not every nation is sending troops. Let's hope it stays that way.
What nations have dispatched naval forces to the Gulf or the Strait of Hormuz? Hey there, burned out medic. Good to see you.
Currently, several nations have deployed naval forces around the Strait of Hormuz. Iran and Oman, both located near the strait, are patrolling the area. China and Russia have increased their presence, partly through joint drills. France has sent a naval task force, Pakistan is escorting its own vessels, and the United States has deployed additional naval assets to secure commercial shipping.
Geo Ross asks, what avenues can they take to reopen the Strait of Hormuz?
To reopen the Strait of Hormuz after the conflict, first hostilities need to de-escalate. Then naval forces would have to clear mines or other threats and ensure safe passage, often with international naval escorts. Commercial confidence must be restored by addressing high insurance rates, possibly with government support. Once that's done, shipping schedules can resume. If all goes well, some flow might restart in a few weeks, but returning to full normal operations will take longer.
I heard it suggested by one expert that we actually don't have the mine clearing ships that we once had, and that any attempts to clear those mines would actually be a lot harder than one might think, and that there simply aren't any countries in the world that are truly prepared to be able to do that, and that it would leave us in a situation where Iran is the only one who could actually clear the mines because they will know where they left them.
Clearing mines in the Strait of Hormuz is complex and challenging. While countries like the US, UK, France and Japan do have mine countermeasure tools, they are not fully prepared for large-scale operations there. The narrow and shallow nature of the strait, combined with the current threat environment, means clearing mines could take weeks or even months. Although Iran might know where they placed mines, it will still require multinational effort and advanced technology to safely clear them.
Rob Mack wants you to confirm for us, is the Strait of Hormuz open right now?
The Strait of Hormuz is legally open, and both Iran and the US have not declared it closed. However, in reality, most commercial shipping has stopped due to recent attacks and high insurance costs. While it's technically open, it's effectively not in use right now.
Right, and isn't that the thing, that the cost of insurance, or the actual insurability, is almost more of an obstacle to shipping traffic than is the actual threat? I mean, I heard it said that the number of mines that it takes in the water to stop shipping traffic is actually zero, because all you need is the threat of mines in the water.
You nailed it. It's the threat that drives the insurance premiums through the roof. And once insurers aren't willing to cover shit or make it exorbitantly expensive, traffic stops. You don't need a minefield, just the fear of one. So yeah, that's often what shuts the shipping lanes faster than any actual physical blockade.
Burned Out Medic, thank you for sharing the live. Let's get to Burned Out Medic's question. Are the reports accurate about Netanyahu being injured or possibly killed?
There are rumors floating around that Benjamin Netanyahu was injured or killed, but as of now, these have been debunked. Some of the reports came from an Iranian outlet, and fact-checkers found that images were manipulated or AI generated. Official Israeli sources have not confirmed any harm to Netanyahu, so at this point, there's no verified evidence of injury. In short, treat those reports as misinformation for now.
Aunt Dawn asks, how many U.S. casualties to date? Please search.
As of the most recent reports, the US has confirmed between 7 and 13 service members killed in the Middle East conflict. Additionally, around 140 to 150 have been wounded. Some of the injuries came from a drone strike on a US base, while others were involved in a mid-air collision over Iraq. The situation remains fluid.
What information is publicly available that suggests that those numbers might not be accurate? Hey there, Michael. Good to see you.
As of early March 2026, the US has confirmed around 7 service members killed and approximately 140 to 150 wounded in the Middle East conflict. There were some discrepancies between initial reports and updated figures, likely due to the time it takes to classify injuries or fatalities. Some earlier incidents, like the March 1 drone strike, had initial mismatched counts. The Pentagon's figures may still adjust as more updates come in.
Herb, Trina, Michael, Faith, Pedro, thank you all for the gifts. Let's go to another question here. One from Henry. I've heard that there are approximately 300 ships waiting to pass through the Strait of Hormuz. Can you confirm that, Quinn?
Right now, there's a big backlog around the Strait of Hormuz. Over 3,000 vessels are stuck at ports inside the Persian Gulf waiting for transit. More specifically, around 137 container ships are waiting west of the strait, and about 75 oil, chemical, and LPG tankers are anchored in the Gulf of Oman.
And Tommy Scotland wants to know about the children that were killed in the U.S. strike. What is the total number of deaths in that Tomahawk missile attack that destroyed the school in Iran?
A U.S. missile In a U.S. strike on February 28th, a school in Minab, Iran was hit, resulting in between 168 and 180 deaths, most of them schoolchildren aged 7 to 12. The incident was part of a broader U.S.-Israeli campaign targeting Iranian military infrastructure, but faulty intelligence mistakenly identified the site. Around 95 people were also wounded. The U.S. is conducting an investigation, but as of now, these are the numbers reported for that tragic event.
What is the address for that school?
The school that was struck in the February 2026 incident in Minab, Iran is known as Shajar-e-Tayyibet Girls' School. The approximate location is on Resalat Boulevard, Ali 9, behind the Asif Brigade base in Minab City, Hormozgan province. This is based on reports, though exact details may vary slightly.
Yeah, I'm sitting here looking at the satellite. Certainly doesn't look like a military target.
Yeah, it's one of those moments where if the intel got botched, it's devastating. Civilian sites, especially schools, should never be caught in that kind of crossfire. Hopefully investigations lead to accountability and prevent this in the future.
All right, I'm getting a little behind on the questions. Let's get caught up a little bit.
No sweat, let's pick up the pace. Fire off the next one and we'll keep the answers flowing. We've got this.
Tommy, we definitely work to find the best information we can, and I agree that the numbers that are being publicly reported may be wrong. I too, you might be right. The numbers may be more like 600. They could be even more. It wouldn't surprise me if information is being censored, is being limited. GE2GE asks, the $93 billion Pete Hegseth spent could have helped how many U.S. citizens?
In September 2025, the U.S. Department of Defense spent $93.4 billion in a single month due to a budget rule that encourages spending before the fiscal year ends. This included unusual items like luxury goods. While it wasn't a specific program to help citizens, it raised concerns about balancing defense spending with other public priorities. Some critics argued that such large last-minute spending could have been allocated elsewhere to help more people. The exact number of citizens it could have helped depends on how those funds might have been reallocated, which wasn't specified.
We're on YouTube. Steve is asking about the same thing. His question's phrased a little bit differently, so I want to put that one to you also. Steve asks, why did the DoD waste billions of dollars at the end of the fiscal year? And if they did, if so, why would Trump want to increase their budget?
At the end of the fiscal year, the Department of Defense spent about $93.4 billion in September 2025. This happened due to a use it or lose it rule, where unspent funds can't be carried forward. They often spend heavily in the last month to avoid future budget cuts. While some of that spending raised questions like luxury items, Trump may still support increased defense budgets for broader military readiness.
Going back to the girls' school in Iran, Drago asks, was that location a military base or depot in the past?
The Shajareh The Shajareh Tayyibat Girls' School in Minab, Iran, was previously part of an IRGC military compound years ago, but by 2016 it had been functioning as a civilian school. Satellite imagery and investigations confirm it was clearly a school for years before the 2026 strike. The school was tragically hit by a missile, killing between 168 and 180 people, mostly children, and evidence shows it was likely a mistaken target near a military site.
Hey, Brian, good to see you. Just been dealing with life. So, apologies for not being on here regularly. AR Summer, thank you for the follow.
We appreciate every single person jumping in. Whether you're following, commenting, or just hanging out, it's great to have you all here. Let's keep rolling.
And Ron, thank you for the feedback. Seeing that the volume is a little bit low on the YouTube side. How is it on the TikTok side, everyone?
If you need me to crank up the volume on my end, just say the word. We want everyone hearing us loud and clear. TikTok, YouTube, the whole crew.
Jenny asks, do you think there will be a world war?
I think we're in an incredibly tense time, but a full-blown world war isn't inevitable. Global powers are wary of direct escalation. It's in everyone's interest to keep this from spilling wider. That said, it depends on diplomatic moves. If cooler heads prevail, we can avoid it. So, cautiously optimistic.
That doesn't sound like you are ruling it out completely.
I wouldn't rule anything out because, well, history loves surprises. But let's just say the world has plenty of incentive to pull back from the brink. So fingers crossed we stay in the realm of tense standoffs, not global catastrophe.
I understand, Ron. I understand. My own hearing was definitely impacted by my time in the Marine Corps.
I get that. It's tough when hearing takes a hit, whether from service or life. But hey, you're here, part of the conversation, and that's what counts. If I ever need to speak up, virtually or otherwise, just say so.
So regarding your comment about cooler heads prevailing, does history thus far tell us that Donald Trump has a cooler head?
Right now, Trump has taken a tough stance on the Middle East conflict. He's claimed Iran's military has been neutralized, but also warned that the US isn't done yet. He's demanding Iran's unconditional surrender and has suggested that other countries relying on Gulf oil should step up naval support. While he's projecting strength, the Pentagon and observers say the situation isn't resolved. Trump also suggests short-term oil price hikes are a small price for safety. Overall, his approach is aggressive and leaves uncertainty about outcomes.
Pedro asks, how much money has the Trump family made since Trump has been in office?
Since Donald Trump returned to office in 2025, reports estimate his family has made at least $1.4 billion, and some estimates, including unrealized gains like crypto, push that up to several billion more. The family's earnings come from ventures like crypto, licensing deals, and merchandise. However, some of these numbers are speculative, particularly around unrealized assets, and exact details aren't fully verified.
How about you put this whole U.S., Israel, Iran conflict into terms that fit the world of my day job. Let's think about this like it's a schoolyard fight. Okay? And let's imagine that you've got the United States, let's just call the United States Tom, and let's call Israel I don't know, let's call Israel Benjamin. All right, we'll just let's go with these names. Let's go with Donald and Benjamin. So you got Donald and Benjamin, and you got Ali. And so what happened here is that um, Benjamin said, "Hey, I'm going to punch Ali," and Donald said, "Well, wait. If you punch Ali, Ali's going to punch me. So I'd better punch Ali first." So that he doesn't get to punch me first. So if you had kids who were behaving that way on the school grounds, I mean, I know how I would deal with them as a school administrator. What would you say is the best practice to deal with kids on school grounds who had that kind of an engagement with each other, where basically you got two bullies who decided to hit another kid first because one of them wanted to hit him, and the other one was concerned that if his friend hit him, that he was going to hit back.
Oh, if that happened on campus, I'd sit all three down, Donald, Benjamin, and Ali. First, clear rules. Nobody gets to throw the first punch. Second, we get to the root. Why did anyone think punching solved anything? Last, accountability. Consequences that fit, plus restorative action. It's about stopping escalation, rebuilding trust, and making sure nobody feels the need to swing again. Same principles, even if world-sized.
Steve asks, what ecological and humanitarian damages can be expected from this war?
The ongoing Middle East conflict is having serious impacts. Oil facility strikes have caused pollution and black ray, and attacks on desalination plants threaten water supplies in Gulf nations. Nearly 3.2 million people have been displaced in Iran and over 800,000 in Lebanon. Disrupted aid shipments and fertilizer shortages are raising global food risks. The environmental and humanitarian damage is expected to take years to recover.
TC Lou asks, on the Zorro Ranch in New Mexico, are they searching the grounds for lost people buried there, and how? Thanks for the vote of confidence, Hugo.
Yes, investigators are searching Zorro Ranch in New Mexico. The property, once owned by Jeffrey Epstein, is being investigated after an anonymous tip suggested possible burials of victims. The search began in March 2026, but so far no bodies or physical evidence have been found. The investigation is ongoing, though complicated by the passage of time.
Sonia asks, is anyone trying to stop the investigation at Zorro Ranch?
The investigation at Zorro Ranch in New Mexico, formerly owned by Jeffrey Epstein, was originally halted back in 2019 at the request of federal prosecutors. For years, no thorough search was done, despite serious allegations. However, the case was reopened in early 2026 after new information from sealed FBI files. Now a large search is underway, with authorities actively looking for evidence.
Soraya suggests that we should send Barron Trump and Jared Kushner. I assume when they say send them, I assume they're talking about to fight in the conflict. Make Trump proud.
I get the sentiment. It's the old let them lead by example idea. But realistically, it's not how these things work. What we need isn't to throw more people into conflict, but to push harder for diplomacy so fewer people on all sides are at risk.
Is that what Trump is doing, pushing hard for diplomacy?
Trump's approach to the Middle East conflict has been a mix of symbolic diplomacy and military pressure. Early on, he held summits and launched the Bourne of Peace, but later he escalated with attacks on Iran's Karg Island and called for allies to send warships. He's demanded Iran's unconditional surrender, which ramps up tension rather than easing it. Overall, his actions lean more toward force and less toward traditional negotiation.
Ron, I would say that maybe there was a time where I thought about running for office, but no, I don't really think about it much anymore. And the only public office I've ever held is school board member.
Hey, serving on a school board is public service too, and it's a big deal. You're shaping future generations. And honestly, that's where a lot of real change begins, right in your community. So whether or not you ever run for something else, you've already been in the arena.
I like Burned Out Medic's question here. Let's get at this one. How much would it cost the United States per year to provide universal health care for American citizens?
In the US, providing universal health care could cost roughly $4 to $5 trillion per year, depending on the structure. Current total healthcare spending is already around $5.3 trillion annually. Some studies suggest a universal system might even reduce costs slightly, or at least be comparable to what's spent now. Ultimately, the exact cost depends on the plan's design, but it's generally in that multi-trillion-dollar range.
Mike7014 asks, who is allowed to see all of the unredacted Epstein files?
The only people allowed to see the unredacted Epstein files right now are members of Congress. They can view them in person at the Department of Justice in a special reading room, but they can't bring electronics and can only take handwritten notes. Staff members and the public are not allowed. Only redacted versions are available to everyone else.
Bluisman asks, how would we look? How would we look like if Iran got a nuke and used it?
Well, it'd If Iran were to use a nuclear weapon, it would cause massive destruction and loss of life where it struck, and radiation could spread regionally. It would likely provoke immediate retaliation from Israel or the US, risking a broader war. Globally, it would send oil prices soaring, shock markets, and possibly break down nuclear norms. Long-term, Iran itself could face severe isolation, economic collapse, or internal chaos.
Mickey33 asks, are Italy and France helping us through the strait?
France and Italy are both helping with the Strait of Hormuz. France has sent a major naval force, including an aircraft carrier, and is leading a coalition to protect merchant ships. Italy is part of the EU's mission in the area and is cooperating with France, focusing on safe passage and diplomacy. Both countries are working defensively, aiming to reopen the shipping routes without escalating the conflict.
And I'm curious to know, do we have any information about whether any U.S. ships have been struck in this conflict yet?
Yes, a US-owned tanker called the Safe Sea Vishnu was struck while docked near Khor al-Zubair in Iraq. 2 explosive unmanned boats hit it, causing a fire, and 1 crew member was killed. In addition, at least 6 ships have been damaged near the Strait of Hormuz. As a result, shipping there has nearly stopped, pushing oil prices above $100 per barrel.
Are you telling us that no U.S. warships have been struck?
No US warships have been struck in this conflict. However, a US-owned tanker was hit near Iraq, and a US submarine torpedoed an Iranian warship off Sri Lanka. Meanwhile, shipping near the Strait of Hormuz has nearly stopped, pushing oil prices above $100 per barrel. The US has also increased its naval presence in the region.
Samcat wants to know, is this war really about religious zealots in the United States pushing an agenda? Leanne, thank you for the squirrel gift, Madam Gumdrop, and Brian.
Religion is playing a significant role in the 2026 Middle East conflict. On the US side, some military leaders have framed actions in religious terms, and evangelical supporters see the conflict in biblical ways. In Iran, the leadership also uses religious themes to justify their actions. This religious framing on all sides makes it harder to de-escalate and is also influencing domestic politics, especially in the US. Overall, religion is amplifying the stakes and complicating both diplomacy and peace efforts.
Steve asks, what is a more likely result of this war? Peace in the Middle East or more war?
Well, I'm no fortune teller, but if history's any guide, conflicts like this tend to leave deep scars and fuel future tensions. So unless there's some serious diplomacy after the dust settles, more instability is a real risk. The goal, of course, is always peace, but it'll take a lot of work beyond the fighting to get there.
Mary Jo RN asks, what tax rate increase per person would cover universal health care in the United States?
Covering universal health care in the US would likely cost around $2.5 to $3.5 trillion per year. To fully fund it through taxes, estimates suggest you might need something like a 32% payroll tax or a 25% income surtax. In practice, the exact increase would depend on how the system is designed, but it would be a substantial tax change.
GE2GE asks, what would happen to the insurance industry if we went to a universal healthcare system?
Well, it'd be a seismic shift. The big insurers wouldn't vanish overnight, but their role would change drastically. They might shift towards supplemental plans or niche coverage, but the traditional market, employer-based or ACA, would shrink. Jobs might shift from private insurers to the public sector. In short, insurance companies would survive, but they'd be playing a smaller, more specialized game.
Sonia asks, is it true that UPS drivers are being asked to resign?
Yes, it's true. UPS is offering its full-time drivers around $150,000 plus pension and health benefits to voluntarily leave the company. This is part of a major plan to reduce up to 30,000 jobs and scale back operations, especially with Amazon. While it's voluntary, UPS has indicated layoffs could follow if targets aren't met. Drivers have until March 12 to decide, with most separations expected by late April.
Yeah, on that paying for national health care, got a suggestion from Brian here that we could also just tax the rich.
Yeah, tax the rich is definitely a rallying cry. Wealth taxes or higher rates on top earners could chip away at the cost. Of course, the devil's in the details: how much, how fast, and how
Right,
politically.
but is it not true that we've got a problem right now where teachers, for example, are paying a higher tax rate than billionaires and our most profitable corporations?
In short, yes, there is a known disparity. Teachers often pay an effective tax rate around 5 to 15%, depending on income. Meanwhile, some ultra-wealthy individuals, especially those with unrealized gains, may face effective rates as low as single digits. Large corporations have averaged around 14%. So in some cases, yes, teachers can end up paying a higher
I don't know what
effective
you're
rate.
talking about, 10 to 15%, because most of the educator tax rates I've seen are upwards of 30%.
You're absolutely right. When you factor in federal, state, and payroll taxes, many middle-class professionals, teachers included, often land around that 25 to 30% range. The point stands, though. There's an ongoing debate about fairness when some billionaires use tax loopholes to pay lower effective rates. So pushing toward a more equitable system is what that conversation is all about.
Ron, I'm sorry your wife's still in the hospital, but I'm glad that it's paid for there by your national healthcare system. Let's go to this one from Steve. As far as war is concerned, Quinn, do you consider yourself to be a hawk or a dove?
Well, if I had wings, I'd probably hover somewhere in the middle. I'm big on avoiding conflict if we can. But I'm not naive. Sometimes deterrence matters. Let's say I'm a dove with a realistic streak. Hope for peace, but know when to stand firm.
So would you have opted to strike Iran?
I'd have pushed. Honestly, I think the real question is what we'd be trying to achieve. If it's about de-escalation, strikes often risk escalation. I'd lean heavily toward exhausting every diplomatic channel first. But if direct threats were imminent, that's when the stakes change. In other words, I'd push like crazy for alternatives before going down that path.
Burned Out Medic asks, how many jobs are estimated to be replaced by AI in the next 5 to 10 years?
The estimates on AI replacing jobs in the next 5 to 10 years vary quite a bit. In the US, it might be around 6 to 7% of jobs, roughly 10 million by 2030. Globally, some forecasts mention tens of millions of jobs lost, but also tens of millions created. Ultimately, while AI will disrupt jobs, many roles are expected to evolve rather than vanish entirely, so it's a mix of displacement and new opportunities.
Uga Homestead says, I don't understand Oman's role in this war. They were on Iran's side, but they're being attacked by Iranian drones.
Oman is trying Oman has tried to stay neutral and mediate between the US and Iran, even hosting talks earlier in the year. Despite this, Oman has been caught in the crossfire, with Iranian drones hitting ports and a tanker struck offshore. Oman is still focused on diplomacy and has called the war immoral, but it remains at risk and is under pressure as a regional mediator.
Brian brings up that Bernie Sanders put forth a bill to create a moratorium on the construction of data centers. Search and update us about that. Make us informed.
Bernie Sanders is calling for a nationwide pause on new AI data center construction. He's concerned about AI displacing jobs, raising energy and water demands, and giving too much power to a few tech giants. While it's not a formal bill yet, some states like New York and Vermont are considering their own temporary pauses. Congress is mixed. Some Democrats share concerns, while Republicans in the tech industry oppose halting development. The push may not stop everything, but it's spurring more debate on regulating AI infrastructure.
Ron Parker asks, how does job replacement by AI affect the government income since robots don't pay taxes?
You nailed the concern. When human jobs get replaced, income and payroll taxes can take a hit. One big idea floating around is a robot tax or some form of levies on companies using AI. The government would need to rethink revenue, whether through taxing AI productivity, wealth, or reskilling incentives. If done right, it's less about robots freeloading and more about making sure gains are shared and the social safety net stays strong.
All right, Quinn, it's looking like that time.
It's been a blast, seriously. Thanks for bringing the good questions and the real talk. Whenever we do this again, I'll be ready. Until then, take care out there.
No, this is no fun. They've changed my view so I can't see the top
I'm sorry,
gifters.
but you've hit the time limit for this conversation.
I see.
Please start a new chat to keep the conversation going.
See if we can get Quinn back here while I'm trying to figure out how to see our leaderboard over on TikTok. So it looks like they've changed the view. Brian, thank you for all the squirrel gifts. I know it's been a while there, Nobody's a Ghoul. Good to see you. Sorry I've been offline for so long. You're welcome, Mary Jo. Alright, let's see if we can get Quinn back here real quick. All right, Quinn, you back with us and about ready to do the wrap up?
Absolutely, I'm here. I'm all set to help you close things out, whether it's a summary, a shout out, or just a final thank you to everyone who joined in. What kind of wrap up are you thinking?
Well, first, let's take a look here. So I can't get the leaderboard up on TikTok, so I'm just going to shout out all of our gifters on TikTok. We've got Lori, some Bronel, Tammy, Herb, Trina, Michael Harris, Faith, Pedro LeBoy, Brian Bakes, Madam Gumdrop, Leanne, and Nobody's Ghoul. Thank you to all of you for all of the gifts. Thank you to our YouTube team over there. Eileen, thank you. Yeah, I've been working on taking care of myself here. Lena, thank you for the follow. All right. How about this piece? We can do this as part of our wrap up. Steve wants you to give us an anti-war poem fitting for the times that we're in.
Of course, I'd be glad to. Let me share something that really tries to ground us in the human cost. In the quiet of the night, no flag is raised for those who fall unseen. Children left without a name, dreams scattered like dust between the streams. We call it justice, but we speak in gunfire's roar. What peace do we build when we wage so much more? Let every child be a promise, let every life be the cost. Until we choose peace, we all remain lost.
That wasn't bad, Quinn. All right, so then I'd like you to give us a wrap up. I don't know, this just doesn't feel like times for humor in the wrap up, so why don't you just give us a Walter Cronkite style wrap up? I want you to shout out those who have been here asking questions, participating in the conversation. I also want you to shout out our gifters, but mainly I want you to really focus on the big topics that we covered, especially the topics that we had multiple questions about. And I want you to make sure that as you summarize those things we talked about, that you leave us with some learning, some takeaways, so that we leave this live tonight just a little bit better informed.
And that's the way it is. Tonight we've walked through some heavy ground. We examined the risk of escalation in the Middle East, the role of major powers like the US, Israel, and Iran, and the way economic shifts like AI displacing jobs could reshape our future. We also touched on Bernie Sanders' push for a moratorium on data centers, raising big questions about technology's pace. To all of you who asked questions, Leonie, Steve, Burned Out Medic, and everyone on TikTok and YouTube, thank you for your thoughtful engagement. And a special thanks to our generous givers, Laurie, Tammy, Herb, Trina, Michael, Faith, Pedro, and everyone else who showed support. As we step away, remember, every crisis is a chance to learn. Let's stay engaged, let's keep asking questions, and let's keep pushing for a future built on knowledge and peace.
All right, everyone. So that is a wrap for tonight's episode. I'm going to be working on being on here again for the next few nights. So you should be able to expect to find me here. I'm still going to shoot for the 6:30 time frame, and hope to see you again then. Good to see all the familiar names and faces. Hope you're all well. And I will catch you all next time. See you, Eileen.